Today, I'd like to talk about the link between what we call mental health and confidence. Traditionally, there is a good link between the two. We traditionally see confidence as being the same thing as mental health. We worship confidence. Motivational speakers are all about confidence, and they are themselves confident in their espousal of confidence as a panacea. They're very confident, and that confidence is catching. We see it and we're attracted to it. We want to be like that. It seems like such a great way to be, and we really and truly can believe that it will be the answer to all our problems. Because we don't, for the most part, really have that type of confidence. We have doubt, self-doubt, and confusion, and moments of complete lack of confidence that we struggle against. So the idea that we could get rid of all of that and just be supremely confident sounds amazing to us. Now, the truth of the matter is that being uncertain and from time to time, or maybe even a lot of the time, doubting what we normally believe to be true, completely doubting it, is a very healthy state of affairs. It's very healthy because we're actually tipping off the truth. We're actually tipping gently off the true state of affairs. And we're starting to see that what we rely on is unreliable. Unreliable because it's not true. But we don't want that because we don't know where it's going to lead us, obviously enough. So we continue to be desperate, to be confident. And where confidence comes from, in the case of, say, motivational literature, what a ridiculous concept, motivational literature. How can something outside of us motivate us? Or if it can, what can be the possible use in that motivation? But what motivates us, makes us feel confident, is positive statements about ourselves, positive statements about our abilities, our capacities, and so on and so forth. Affirmatory stuff. Now, if we can believe in all of that stuff, then we will be confident. So really, this is a very, very superficial approach. It's a laughably superficial approach. It's like what they always say about teeth, that it's important to have good teeth because then you'll be confident and then all life's problems will be solved because of this confidence. And that may sound stupid. It is stupid, but that's the message we've been hearing for decades. You can just imagine an ad with someone with brilliant teeth. And because you've got brilliant teeth, you're not afraid to smile and show those teeth. That imbues us with supreme confidence because of the teeth. If someone were to come along and knock those teeth out, or if they were to get all stained and crappy looking, then bang, there goes our confidence. So confidence, which is equated to mental well-being or a positive way of being in the world, as they'd say, is dependent upon teeth. So that's crazy, isn't it? Psychology comes down to your teeth, but it could come down to other things, of course. That's just an example. It could come down to your clothes, what you wear, if you look smart. If you wear designer gear, that can make us confident. Why? Well, because of the implicit message that is in designer clothes, good label clothes that we go and spend extra money. There's a message in that. The message is completely dumb. It's just to say I'm somehow a more worthy person, a person of note, or a person of substance because I've got this clothes on, wearing this label. How bizarre is that? Is it possible to be so superficial? And yes, it is possible to be superficial as that. For sure it is. And then we can talk about money. If I've got lots of money or property or assets, that gives me confidence. But again, what the hell is that about, confidence? What is this confidence? So really we can actually analyze this and dissect it and kind of say that confidence comes out of a belief in a literal reality. That inasmuch as we believe that there is a literal reality, which is the same thing as believing that our literal statements about reality are actually true, that they're not pure moonshine. So when we believe in the truth of our literal statements, that gives us confidence. And so in kind of contemporary Western psychology and the more rational type of therapies, we have this. We have the mind making definite statements, and then we can derive confidence or belief in ourselves from these statements. So the activity of the thinking mind creates statements that make us feel better. But this really isn't any different from feeling confident because your teeth have all been fixed because you've spent 20,000 on getting your teeth sorted out. It's exactly the same thing. Because the activity of thought is purely arbitrary. You can think one thing just as easy as you can think another, or you can find the evidence for one statement just as easily as you can find the evidence for the other. What the thinker thinks, the prover proves, says Robert Anton Wilson. So first you think it, and then you prove it, and then you get all kind of smug about it. You have to be supremely superficial to benefit from this smugness, but we are, so that's okay. For the most part, we are. We're not afraid to be superficial because it gives us what we want. Which is kind of like what Bertrand Russell says when he says, the curse of the world really isn't his exact words, but kind of the curse of everything. It's like stupid people are supremely confident and they naturally rise to positions of being influential on us, positions of authority and power. Whereas people who think more deeply about things never are. They don't have that confidence which comes out of stupidity. I don't mean stupid in the sense that you're going to score low on an IQ test. I mean superficiality, really. Just you have to be very, very superficial. Then you can be very, very confident. But getting back to this idea that confidence comes out of a belief in the literal reality or the literal veracity of our statements, this is taken for granted in psychology. We don't question that. We don't question that there is such thing as a thought which can be true, a definite thought. All thoughts are definite. A definite thought that can be true. So we can think true things and untrue things, right things and wrong things. But then if we were to break out a little bit from this cul-de-sac, which is rational psychology, we would see that, well, in science, in physics in particular, we know that there's no such thing as a literally true statement about the world. We know that. We've known that for almost 100 years now. See, so it's very slow to catch on. In some areas, we gain that insight, we advance in our awareness, and everything else is lagging behind, particularly psychology, I guess. And maybe stuff to do with mental health in general, because mental health is a weird territory, and it doesn't attract people who are very, doesn't seem to attract people who are very reflective. Because if it did, then we'd reflect on what we've learned and what people say and what we're supposed to say and what we do say, and we think, gosh, this is all very superficial, but we don't reflect. There isn't that type of atmosphere isn't encouraged, really. Definitely not encouraged. But the fact is that what's true about the world in general, that we can't say definite, make literally true statements about it. It's true for everything. It's true for everything. It's true for in the domain of psychology as well. So the thing is that I can come up with definite or literal statements about reality, but only if I tailor my outlook to suit that definite description or statement about reality. So certain things can appear very much to be true if I look at things in it with tunnel vision, with blinkers on, and refuse to see the wider picture, which is kind of akin to being superficial. Instead, we're just being very, very narrow. So this has to do with the relativity of truth, which became abundantly clear with quantum physics, because the answers that we obtained depend entirely upon the way that we choose to look at the subject under consideration. So really our literal answers are answers that we can see as being true, are a reflection of our way of looking at things. So we're never getting outside of our own, we're never getting outside of ourselves, really. We're never seeing a wider reality, because we can't. Every set of assumptions we take gives us a feedback which directly is a direct reflection of those assumptions. So we're proving nothing, but we think we are. When we understand that all literal truths are merely a function of our fixed or limited way of looking at things, this makes everything ridiculous. And that's all it does. We can't go any further than that. We get to the point of saying that everything we can say about the world is supremely meaningless, supremely immaculately meaningless. And beyond that point we cannot go. But when we see that we were taking a whole load of stuff seriously that we oughtn't to have been taking seriously. And we just, at that point, we have to drop it. Just drop it all. And at that point, we pass from the world of literal truths, which are literally true, and we can hold on to them at the same time as they're completely false and dependent upon the fact that we have actually arranged for them to be true in the first place, into the world of uncertainty. Now, uncertainty isn't our own construct. We don't project that out into the world. Radical uncertainty isn't something that comes out of my assumptions. It comes when I drop all my assumptions. So through radical uncertainty, we go beyond ourselves. We drop our viewpoint, in other words. Our conditioning, we drop our conditioning. So that's no good from the conventional point of view, because if I say that all confidence comes from having a firm belief in thought, the power of thought, the efficaciousness of thought, the veracity of thought, and a solid belief in the literal truth of my statements, then all that is immediately gone when we enter into the real world, if we want to enter into the real world, if we're interested in venturing out from our closed little world of self-deception, which is what it is, into the actual world, which is a lot bigger than our closed little world, where we get to be humoured. So we're humouring ourselves the whole time. It's like no matter what I say, you say, yes, 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 that's right. Oh, yes, 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 you're so right there. Oh, you're right there. That's the type of world we choose to live in, where we're self-humouring. We're humouring ourselves the whole time. So we're safe from anything that disagrees, anything that makes a fool of us. But of course, if we want to be mentally well in any kind of genuine way, then we have to be open to being made fools of. We have to be open to being falsified. We have to be open to stuff that devalidates us. Because these days we say, oh no, that's no good. You mustn't devalidate people, or you mustn't allow yourself to be devalidated, or remove yourself from a situation where you're being devalidated. But being validated is the same as being humoured. There exists nothing in this world apart from devalidation. That's all there is. Everything you want to believe in, everything you do believe in, whether you want to or not, reality will devalidate it. It'll negate it. It'll negate it as if it never existed, because it never did exist. So there was actually no need to negate it, because there was nothing there to negate in the first place, which is the Mahayana super-negation. That's reality. Reality is the bigger place. It's got nothing to do with the confirmation of our biases and prejudices. That's not reality. That's when we hide from reality. So these two things, hiding from reality and actually being brave enough to let our concepts be falsified or devalidated and dissolved into a bigger picture. So in that case, we need a new type of mental health that's not based on confidence. Because what is there to be confident in? There is nothing. There's nothing at all anywhere to be confident in, to base our confidence. So how can we get any type of mental health out of that, we might quite reasonably think. And the answer is really that, well, when we talk about mental health, we're talking about, when we talk about it in our in the usual way we talk about it, we're talking about the integrity of the game of the self-construct. The self-construct can only survive when it is in a humouring environment, a validating environment, environment that reflects back its own prejudices back at itself, so it gets to believe its own lies, its own narrative, its own story. That is the only way that the self-concept can survive. Can't survive out there on its own, because there's nothing to validate it. It needs to be validated via this kind of loop. So it projects a reality out there that validates itself, and then it ignores everything else. So that's how it gets to happen. So we could say there is a type of mental health, an analogue of mental health, which is actually the health of the illusory self-concept, and that's what we're all playing for. That's what we're all trying to maximize. But there's a flaw in that particular model of mental health, that it is mental health in a dream, mental health in a fantasy, fictional mental health within the game which I'm playing, which is true because it's a game. So that's not so good, really. So then if we make the jump and we're not afraid of having our prejudices stripped away from us, which we are, of course, naturally we're afraid of that, because we don't know what's going to happen then, or what it is going to be revealed then. We haven't a clue. It kind of feels like it's going to be something cataclysmic, and it is. But that's not the bad thing we thought it would be. It's kind of more of a happy cataclysm, really. It's the end of the self-construct. So the other type of mental health has to do with being okay without basing everything we do on an illusion, or being hitched to an illusion. So I kind of want to be okay, I want to have well-being, but stay hitched to the illusion. And in the West, it's very, very clear to see that is exactly what we're doing. We're not doing anything else. No matter how scientific we might try and sound about it, that's what we're doing. So all the science in the world isn't going to rescue us from that farcical situation. Or there is the type of well-being that comes when we aren't dependent upon any illusion at all, where we don't need to be tethered to an illusion. Like a goat might be tethered to a post driven into the ground. Cut the rope. No longer tethered. So we're untethered, we're free. But that doesn't mean that the ego construct is free to go and do its ego type stuff. What it means is that we're free from the ego, And so there's no one to be free, and that is the freedom. So really we're getting our sense of well-being from relating to uncertainty, relating to radical uncertainty, which is openness. Instead of getting it from knowing, which is false knowing, because I don't know anything really, as Plato said, or whoever said, I know that I know nothing. I think it's Plato. So, and there's well-being that comes in that sense that Plato is talking about, the well-being that comes from no longer having to deceive ourselves.